They say there's no evidence of a voter fraud. Well, you can't find evidence if when evidence is already found, the DOJ basically sues to suppress said evidence. So you've heard this a lot, and I just think the timeline today is very interesting. Very rarely do you have an issue, and certainly the left on this issue, dead to rights. That's where we are right now. Now, I would argue, and I would love for you to comment below, what do you think has been the most convincing evidence that you have seen of election meddling, rigging, voter fraud? Comment below. We know there's rigging and meddling through social media algorithms, through legacy media, through burying stories like the Hunter Biden laptop. We've talked about that. But right now we are getting into the specific scenario of voter fraud or potential voter fraud. Let me just ask you this. We all agree, right, that you should only vote if you are a legal citizen here. Can we find common ground on that?
Yes.
Okay, before we even get to the idea of deporting, before we get to the idea of dreamers or anchor babies, as it stands right now in 2024, only law-abiding citizens eligible to vote should vote in our national elections, correct? Okay. DOJ says no. Now,
Come on, DOJ.
the DOJ is suing Virginia, the state of Virginia, because Virginia's governor, Glenn Youngkin, okay, he basically signed this executive order designed to remove non-citizens from voting rolls. Now, let him explain it to you with Jake Tapper, who, by the way, is stunned in silence. This is not a suspicion. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is over 6,000 self-identified non-citizens who were on the voting rolls who needed to be removed, and so he did. That's why the DOJ is suing, to keep non-citizens on the voting rolls. We'll provide all of the references, LouderWithCrowder.com, link in the description, okay? Am I clear? Let's hear Youngkin defend it with Jake Tapper, who has nothing to say.
Let me just first begin. It's anything but a purging program. It begins with someone identifying themselves as a non-citizen. And I guess I would posit back to you, do you think that non-citizens, when they've self-identified as a non-citizen, should stay on the voter roll and therefore be in a position to potentially vote in a presidential election?
I don't think any non-citizen should vote. How are they self-identifying? How does that happen?
Here's the
They
answer.
actually tick a box that says I am a non-citizen, or they do not answer the question that
Gets
they
worse.
are a citizen, and therefore they self-identify that they are not a citizen in the United States of America. And this is why this is so out of bounds in my mind from the Justice Department. They fully understand this. They understand the process starts with a person self-identifying as a non-citizen, and then there is a match with that person's name on the voter rolls, and they are given not just one, but up to 3 times in order to try to cure it.
Yes. So they identify as a non-citizen, and then basically Virginia says, hey, just want to make sure, are you a citizen or not a citizen? Because you checked non-citizen. And they check again, non-citizen. So I don't know, the case can be made, and I can't prove this, there's probably more non-citizens than the people who went through that process.
You mean most non-citizens wouldn't say I'm a non-citizen?
Notoriously hard to get to self-identify as non-citizens.
Well, if you trust your institutions, to trust that everyone's telling the truth.
It's almost unheard of.
As
One
we
can
were
argue.
doing a government ID.
Yes.
I identify as trans. I don't.
Look, we love you just the same. We love you just as much.
Why'd you tell the DMV that? Weird.
You get bored. You look for things to do.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump weighed in on this. And here's the thing. Donald Trump weighed in, and then he was fact-checked by CBS, the same CBS who proactively lied, and we'll show you the video. So Donald Trump weighed in on this on Truth Social. He said, one of the greatest examples of DOJ weaponization is the fact that they are suing Virginia to put all of the illegal voters, which were fully exposed and removed by the important work of Governor Glenn Youngkin, back on the voter rolls, folks, back on them. Obviously, this was done so that they can cheat on the election. So sad. So sad. What has happened to our once great country? So CBS.
I love how you go with the all caps.
I said how I read it.
You have to read how he wrote it. Yeah.
CBS issued a non-fact-checking fact check. And this is, so they say fact check. And that's enough where people go, oh, it must be false, right? But here's what they say in their fact check. CBS. Voter fraud by non-citizens is very rare. Experts have found. They don't really cite the experts.
Nope.
There's no evidence of widespread non-citizen voting in previous election. Well, that's not a fact check of what Donald Trump is saying. And if you say it's rare, okay, well, it's not unheard of. It's not so rare in this instance. 6,300 times, 6,300 at least non-citizens were purged from the Virginia voting rolls. And here's the thing, this is the argument. They'll say Donald Trump lost every case. That's actually not true. We'll do a segment on that. They say there's no evidence of voter fraud. Well, you can't find evidence if when evidence is already found, the DOJ basically sues to suppress said evidence. It would be like a local sheriff's department suing one of their detectives to put the murder weapon back on the street. This is the evidence. It's the starting evidence. It's 6,300. It's the murder weapon. We have the prints. We have DNA. No. Put that back at the crime scene. We're not going to admit it. See, there's no evidence. Yeah, but you didn't accept the evidence. 6,300 just in Virginia. So CBS issues that fact check, which is not a fact check. And keep in mind, if you actually trust your institutions of media, when people say, hey, you have people online they can be purveyors of misinformation, that fact check combined with the fact that it's the same CBS who edited Speaker Johnson's interview on this exact topic.
You know that it is against the law for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. That's established law.
Of course it is. But here's the problem. There's a number of states that are not requiring
this is what they aired for those listening on audio.
Illegals or non-citizens.
Ben Johnson uploaded his
We know
photos.
that's happening.
But respectfully, Speaker,
everybody should want the law to be followed.
You know that it is against the law for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. That's established law.
Of course it is. But here's the problem. There's a number of states that are not requiring proof of citizenship when illegals or non-citizens register to vote. We know that's happening. Look, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, I was going to say, he issued an executive order to clean up their voting rolls heading into the election. Less than 30 days out, a couple of days ago, the Biden administration, Department of Justice, Biden-Harris administration, sued the governor and the Commonwealth of Virginia to try to prevent them from cleaning up their voter rolls. See, that kind of thing creates a lot of doubt and concern in the minds of a lot of the American people. Why would they do that? Everybody should want the law to be followed. Yeah.
So, two important points here. Why do you think CBS didn't want to air that second part that included great specificity? The same media networks who issue the fact check saying there is no evidence of voter fraud taking place or non-citizens voting. He lays out the undeniable fact that it is possible here in Virginia, and they've taken steps to fix it, and the DOJ has ensured that they can't. That's why CBS doesn't want you to hear that. Second point, think of where we are. That Speaker Johnson knew this was going to happen, filmed it on his own, and they did it anyway, so he had to upload it to social media. It's your fault that you don't trust your institutions? I think if you trust your institutions in 2024, you need a CAT scan. So let me continue through this here, because I will say this. Once upon a time on YouTube, you'd be removed. Now we're allowed to, because they're probably going to dispute the next election. We do not have free and fair elections in this country. It's not as bad as a lot of other countries. We do have some checks and balances, some margins in place to try and ensure at least a somewhat fair vote. There is one side exclusively fighting to make sure that does not take place. And it's not the side saying you need ID to vote. It's the side saying you cannot purge illegal aliens from voting in your own state.
Yeah. And the Department of Justice has known about this. This law has been in effect since 2006. It was signed by a Democrat. It was upheld by Democrat governors before this. It also is a state where they have same-day voter registration. So if there is this problem where you accidentally get pushed off the voter roll, you show up to vote, you have proof of citizenship, you have your ID, you can vote that day. They have gone after him 25 days before an election for a reason, to keep these people on. So when Donald Trump says they want to keep people on, they do. They knew about this 90 days out from the election when he signed the order. The order didn't make this law. The order said instead of checking monthly, we're going to check daily, right, to make sure that this gets corrected. That was it. Yeah. This is the easiest case to prosecute against voter fraud in your state, and the DOJ is saying you can't even do that.
Let me ask you this, too. Before we I'm going to go through these claims here and some more examples of voter fraud. Do you believe for a second that the DOJ or higher courts do you doubt that they ever interpret law and go, okay, hold on a second, this is about the spirit of the law, and if something is overwhelmingly important, they decide to not go with a technicality, not hang you on a technicality, right? You know they do that, right? So here, They're trying to hang the state on a technicality and say it's too close to an election. Yeah, but hold on a second. There's nothing really in dispute here that these are non-citizens. They've identified as non-citizens multiple times. Virginia is not asking for the right to actually investigate the, I guarantee you, far, far more non-citizens who didn't self-identify.
Yeah.
They're just asking to clear up the things that are not in dispute. And the DOJ, you think that they're looking out for you by sticking to the letter of the law, a technicality here? Let me ask you, why is the DOJ so dead set on ensuring that non-citizens stay on the voting roll? And here's the thing. How would you be able to check? The citizen, once the election takes place, how would you be able to know which non-citizens vote? You can't. Then the courts rule it's moot. So let's go through some of these examples here. Here's a claim you hear from the left a lot. Non-citizens cannot vote. Don't worry about it.
This attempt to spread widespread claims about non-citizens voting. That's something experts say is incredibly rare.
If you're not fighting an actual problem, which we're not in this country with non-citizens voting.
Right now is leading the charge, claiming that undocumented immigrants will be voting en masse this year, even though there is no proof of that, and it is 100% illegal for non-citizens to vote.
It is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. It's already illegal.
Okay, so technically that's true. I don't know if you know, it's true that it's illegal to steal.
Yes, murder.
But if you never put up security cameras or have security guards, it's almost like you can't know who's stealing.
That's true.
So the law is useless. So here's the truth. Sure, it's technically illegal, but those in government are working to ensure that it remains imminently feasible every single election. Certainly your federal government, because other states, by the way, have identified and removed non-citizens. Reference is available. Link in the description. Alabama removed over 3,200. Ohio, almost 600. Texas, 6,500. And it's very, very difficult to do. I don't know if you know this. If you can't identify non-citizens with the census, it's pretty tough to do through an election law. There's a lot of red tape. Keep in mind, in 2020, you had states that were determined by no more than 11,000 votes, places like Georgia and Arizona. So a few thousand votes here, 10,000 votes there. Place a bet. How many non-citizens do you think vote or could vote in this country? We know that we have at least the low end 14 million illegal aliens. The high end is 20 million in the last 3 years. What if just 1, 2, 10% of them vote? Hey, there are no laws to really stop them in many states. Here's another truth. 19 states require no proof of citizenship to get a driver's license. And then some of those states don't require ID when you show up to vote anyway. That's 14. So 19 states require no proof of citizenship to get a driver's license. You show up, you get ID. You do not have to be a citizen. You can vote with that ID. And then 14 states outright don't require voter ID when you show up to vote at the polls. 24 states total offer exceptions to the voter ID laws. Think about that for a second. When you have states that were determined by thousands of votes, when you have thousands of illegal aliens on the voting rolls that have been identified, which is really hard to do. In Virginia alone, over 6,300 self-identified multiple times. You combine that with 19 states, basically have no proof of citizenship to vote. Let's be honest.
Yeah. And don't forget Tim Walz, his state where he wanted to give people ID and then I think within a year automatically register them to vote.
Yep.
80,000 people in his state would then be eligible to vote that are there illegally.
Yep.
That's the kind of rules that they want.
Yep. And you know what? Every single vote is one that shouldn't take place. It erases the same number of American votes. It's not about hating people from other countries. It's about not hating yourself. It's about being proud to be American. And that means that you're proud to be in a country that respects rule of law. Hey, if you're still watching, this is the part where I increase interactions and tell you to comment below. What do you think? Right, because that works. But if you don't, you can just click one of these videos playing in a similar vein, or it may autoplay. Ooh, that's fun.